developer conference Devcon 2024 has wrapped up in Bangkok with over 12,000 attendees from across the globe converging to discuss all things Ethereum. We saw these few major themes. First and most obvious one is that there was a huge turnout. Ethereum is clearly the strongest community in crypto, second only to Bitcoin. This conference space is gigantic, but every single space is filled to the brim. The multiple stages are highly attended, people are working, networking, and just thrilled to see each other face to face. The energy is really contagious. Next, there's a growing narrative in Ethereum in that there's a need to unify the ecosystem. Ethereum has become fragmented with dozens of layer 2s and even more to come. So layer 2s have successfully allowed Ethereum to scale, but now we're left with a very complicated ecosystem to navigate as users need to jump from layer 2 to layer 2 and then to and from mainnet. So now there's a challenge to simplify that user experience and make it seamless with new technologies like intent and account abstraction. Then probably the biggest announcement was Justin Drake outlining his vision for an overhaul of Ethereum's consensus layer into a new Beam chain. The Beam chain would be completed in 5 to 7 years and is aimed at making Ethereum faster and more decentralized. But even as the Beam chain and other talks highlighted interesting technical developments for Ethereum, many attendees, myself included, left thinking that there's just too much focus on infrastructure and too little on how this infrastructure will actually be used. There were very few talks and presentations outlining use cases and applications, which in the end is what actually matters. Otherwise, this is just a very expensive and elaborate science project. And it's not like those use cases and dApps are not there. Crypto has made huge strides in adoption. We just wish we saw that highlighted a bit more at Devcon. But let's see if others agree with our take. We'll hear from them now.
I think some of the issues that, for me as a non-tech guy, is that most of the sessions here were very technical, developer focused. I think it would have been more inclusive if there were more panels and more sessions and more discussions that were a bit more beginner level, or perhaps are covering areas or apps or dApps that are easier for consumers like myself to get into to understand more. Because for me to follow a developer track is really quite challenging. So I look forward to the Ethereum Foundation as well as Devcon to help us open up the sessions for more retail, for more public people who might be beginners, who might not have a great deep understanding about developing on Ethereum, but to welcome them in for some simple sessions to get them excited about this.
I think the first one definitely is the Justin Drake's Beam chain talk. It's a consensus upgrade, and it will probably increase the value accrual of ETH. And lastly, I think intents are really coming. With intents, I think the user experience will be easier, and the composability and the interoperability will be really easy after we have the real use case of intents.
Now, the Ethereum community has created a lot of problems over the years with the very highly modular, stack that's not very interoperable. So lots of problems to solve in the future. But it's also a bit of a reckoning. I was at Vitalik Buterin's talk where he was talking about the roadmap to Ethereum, reducing block times, reducing latency, improving bandwidth, which I think there's a bit of imperative there generated by Solana's recent successes and their optimizations. It was interesting to see how Justin Drake was saying it's going to take 4 or 5 years, but Vitalik was saying that's the long timeline, and he thinks it's going to happen a lot faster.
Discussions around the fragmentation we have in the ecosystem, where we have a bunch of L2s coming up, fragmentations around bridges and a lot of other infrastructure, and we need to find better interoperability to actually have a unified user experience, that users experience one Ethereum and not a gazillion different Ethereums, and that was a big theme. Then I also think increasingly we start talking about actually connecting Ethereum to the real world. That's not just real world assets, that's also how can Ethereum plug into the traditional financial ecosystem and not have a completely siloed experience on-chain than you have off-chain.
There's things being built every day at these hackathons, right? There's no shortage of application. I think the amplification of anything and the distribution of it is the bottleneck.
I think one of the things that really excite me is the amount of new innovation that's coming out that we see in at this event. The first one mainly being AI, and the addition of AI agents into the whole Ethereum ecosystem. I think that's really cool, really innovative. It's finally going to happen where we're going to see mass onboarding in the next couple of months.
I feel like I'm meeting with like real builders here. I think that's the really great feeling, especially from all around the world, from Latin America, Africa, like Turkey, Asian side, and also like Europe countries too.
I think the community that's here is amazing to see many people from Africa, from Asia, of course, all Southeast Asia, and yeah, generally from many parts of the world that sometimes don't have access to come to these conferences because of visa issues. So it's beautiful to see everyone here with different perspectives, bringing what they're building, what they want to learn about, Ethereum, to kind of create more real-world impact with also what we discussed, long-term building, plus the narrative around stablecoins. All of these things actually help solve real-world problems, especially in the areas that we just mentioned.
I very much like the DIAC day in that sense, but at the same time, what I would love to see, maybe I'm being a bit selfish in saying this, is like we have some of the existential risk where L1s like Ethereum can have a positive influence, especially the intersection of AI and X-rays for AI. I would have loved to see a bit more of that happening here because I know Vitalik is a strong proponent of this. I don't know about the rest of the people, but in my mind, we collect so many brilliant minds at the same place. We give them a lot of incentive, and there are a lot of minds who could actually work together. One of the biggest contribution to the world from Ethereum is creating this consensus layer. Being able, can you imagine being able to coordinate this many people? Coordination problem is a non-trivial problem. What L1s have done, what Ethereum has actually shown us, that layer ones can actually do this consensus building or that kind of thing in a pretty efficient time and resource bound manner. So we could have leveraged Ethereum as a consensus making mechanism to shed some light on this X-risk problem, which is for all of humanity, especially where things are getting really, really fast and a lot of money is being spent. And I don't know if it's attracting the same levels of brains that Ethereum has attracted. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, right? It is very possible that our community has some brains who have a very different perspective than the typical AI ecosystem.
And what's also great is that there's very little shilling here at Devcon. It's really about everyone trying to contribute towards Ethereum rather than just shilling their own project and trying to get the most out of it.
It's really cool to see all the builders from across the globe. I'm very bullish and even more bullish now.